spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers. In the words of a master thespian, some days you just can't get rid of a bomb, and some days you just can't get rid of a ring either. Can I get a little help here? Help? I really need somebody.
Oh, yeah. Anybody?
Help? No, not just anybody.
Oh, okay.
No, really, Max, I need some help. I can't do this show by myself. Well, I can, but that would involve a second pair of socks, and no one's got time for that.
Right. Are you feeling down?
No.
So you don't appreciate me being around?
Well, in general, I suppose to. At this particular second, I'm not sure.
Well, get your damn feet back on the ground and get on with it.
Oh, right, show. Welcome to the first Hingle Dingle episode of our wacky packy look at a band of four guys that made a few records some years ago that most people have forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, The Beatles is our new series. And
right here on our show.
On our show. All four of them, and two of them are not in the fire grate. Oh, too soon. It's our new series, and we're going to take a look at movies that star them, that are about them, and are influenced by them, or as we say in the industry, Beatles adjacent. The mop-headed Manx on my left, also known as the quiet one, if he knows what's good for him, is Max 16th Beatle Levine. Sing us a refrain, Max.
No, I don't think I will. I don't see why I should have to perform like some sort of trained monkey. I'm not a trained monkey. Yoko, help me!
That was the worst John Lennon ever.
It was flawless! Flawless!
And you are the monkey. I'm the host. You are the monkey. It's that week. I am the engineer that makes the tape go round and round. 44th Beatle twice removed. Marketing maven Mike Luce. Together, we are not Wild Stallions. And also together, we are going to take a look at your answers to our poll question. Poll question. Dear gods, there were a lot of answers to last week's poll question.
Boy, people like this one.
Yeah, we'd better get to it or there's not going to be any time left for the Beatles.
Nope.
We asked, is there such a thing as a perfect movie musical where all the songs hit the mark, where there are no bad tunes at all? And boy, howdy, did you have opinions?
No.
Ed Shield said, Streets of Fire. Wait a minute, that's not a musical. That's just one of my coworkers who is not going to rest until I watch that movie, because apparently it's a thing. But anyway, moving on to people who actually know what a musical is. Adam Mark was next with, quote, West Side Story, Sound of Music, Chicago, Cabaret, The Prom. Yes, I include this one, end quote.
The Prom?
I don't know. But it's a whole passel of good ones, so thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
I got to take a deep breath for this one. Geneva Brunetti seems to really like musicals. She offered, quote, Royal Tenenbaums. What?
What? That's not a musical?
I didn't think so either.
She's talking about, is she talking about soundtracks? Because that does have a very cool soundtrack. But
Wicker Park? Not the bees! Oh, no, I'm incredibly
Wicker
biased.
Park man.
I'm incredibly biased for both of those movies, but I love their sound. Not musicals, but great soundtracks that hit the mark. There you go. Okay. Hamilton should be worth mentioning. The fact that it was 4 shows edited together qualifies it as a movie, right? I may be biased from my experience filming and editing stage shows. Chicago did some really cool things with their musical numbers. I kind of loved it. I should watch Chicago again. Rent was almost on this list. The film songs were all fantastic, save for Living in America, which just didn't land in the film version for me, end quote.
I like James Brown's version.
Oh, I wonder if she missed any. Oh, wait, she had a late edition. Quote, can we count Disney movies? Encanto slaps. I assume that's good, although with recent Oscar happenings, I might want to change the... Too soon?
Too soon.
She says, Encanto slaps, and I haven't seen it in theaters. I haven't even seen it in theaters, end quote. I think we can indeed count Disney films.
Sure.
Thank you, Geneva. I mean, how could we not?
Yeah, I mean, I think a number of other people bring them up, too.
Oh, yes. Chrissy Becker snuck some in between other comments. Quote, if we're counting Disney, there you go, then Beauty and the Beast, which is her absolute favorite movie, animated, not the awful live action.
Thank you.
And Tangled are some of the best musicals. Princess and the Frog, too, end quote. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Chrissy. In one of many votes, we have Tim Potter starting us off with 100% of the songs hit the mark. That is a tough goal to hit, but in my opinion, Little Shop of Horrors comes very close, end quote. Totally agree. Yeah. Max and I first saw that in England.
Yeah, that's a whole other country.
It is. Which it's always strange seeing American accents and American music on stage.
Yeah.
But that's right. Steve Keltner had even more to say than Geneva.
Oh.
Quote, Beauty and the Beast animated is actually an operetta. You don't need the dialogue. I also like the live-action version despite Emma Watts' singing voice not being up to Paige O'Hara's, in part because of the added songs, some of which are every bit as good as the original, e.g. Evermore, which wrecks me every time. 1776. The visuals are a little too obviously filming a stage show, but the songs are epic, and John Adams is a role I would kill to play. There's a new version coming out at the ART soon, made up entirely of racially diverse queer, trans, female cast, and I'm looking forward to it. Little Shop of Horrors, the musical, is delightful. The Disney Hercules, not a miss there, and using gospel music was inspired. Chicago was very good, not perfect. I prefer Dee Snider's take. Yes, that Dee Snider on Razzle Dazzle.
Twisted Sister?
To the much slower Richard Gere version in the movie. But beautiful staging. Did not know that.
Sure.
Disney's Aladdin. No complaints about that music, and the delivery is great. Well, I'm cutting in here. Do you mean the pre-cut version or the edited version we all now know because nobody has a copy of the original?
Yeah.
He says it holds up surprisingly well on stage too. If you have a good enough genie, we saw it on Broadway and he was wonderful. Encanto has been mentioned and it's very good. Music is much tougher than many of these others. The only one that is really easy to sing along with is We Don't Talk About Bruno. I agree. I actually prefer Surface Pressure, but it's tricky.
Yeah,
wow.
me too.
Set all that to music, why don't you? Thank you, Steve. Dave is not a fan. Quote, in my world, no. Musicals are trite and generally have one or two good numbers at best. Since there is no perfection outside film, then none on film. That said, I do love me some Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Top Hat, Shall We Dance, and Swing Time. These are a pleasure, though not because of the music.
Yeah.
Also, of course, I like movies that have real musicians doing their thing. So to have and have not is a favorite because of Hoagie Carmichael, even though Lauren Bacall's singing is not exceptional, end quote. I mean, personally, my favorite Hoagie Carmichael appearance is on The Flintstones.
Wait, wasn't he Hoagie Carmichael then?
Maybe, but it was still him.
Yeah, it was.
Well, thanks anyway, Dave. We always appreciate honesty. Dr. Professor Rebecca Pelkey asked, quote, does Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog count, end quote? It totally does.
It completely and utterly does.
Thanks, Becca. Nick Hoffman proffered, quote, Little Shop of Horrors. Seth and I saw the live show off Broadway. Ellen Green and the Chorus Girls were all there. One thing, see the director's cut with the original ending, end quote. Yeah, there's more Little Shop, and it won't be the last. What he's talking about is the movie version with Rick Moranis. They kind of decided that the original ending was a bit of a downer. Spoiler,
which it is.
The plant wins, we all die.
Yeah.
So they filmed some sort of heroic extra ending that they sort of tacked on.
But doesn't work.
Thanks, Nick. Harry McCracken offered too, quote, Pinocchio and 42nd Street, end quote. Well, good choices, Harry. Val Coons, who is totally my sister, gives us, quote, I can't believe no one said Singin' in the Rain yet. Another one I'm very fond of, Meet Me in St. Louis. And yes, Sound of Music. These three are faultless music-wise, in my opinion, end quote. Sound of Music. I'm actually surprised it took that long to get to that one.
Yeah. Well, no, somebody mentioned it right at the beginning in a string with a bunch of them.
But again, this was huge, and we're not done. We have another page to go.
Strap in.
Thanks, Val. Yeah. Regan McStravick posted, quote, I'm not sure I would necessarily call it perfect musical, but Hair is a very rare example of a Broadway show that was made into a film, and the film is better than the stage play, end quote.
I would agree with that.
I forgot about that one. Thanks, Regan. Is there a nude scene in that one?
No, kind of, but not the same one.
Oh, because they're supposed to be in the stage show. I know that.
Yeah, but that's actually part of one of the songs. There's a bit of a nude scene, but it just sort of happens.
Ooh, nude scene. Richard Tatum is next with, quote, Singin' in the Rain for sure. I would argue Chicago too, end quote. Well, there you go. Thanks, Richard. Julie O'Malley brings up an obscure one, Pennies from Heaven. Christopher Walken singing Let's Misbehave was totally worth the price of admission, end quote.
That is a very cool number. It's a creepy musical, though.
Never seen it. I know it's Steve Martin and Bernadette Peters, something like that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie. I think she also might be a first-timer there, but...
welcome.
Jamie Kleinert has a bit of a list as well. Quote, I have to agree with the vote for Dr. Horrible, and while I don't remember it, although I know I've seen it, Repo the Genetic Opera might qualify in this category. Max?
No, no, it would not. You're wrong. I'm sorry. I know it's taste, but you are wrong. I'm sure you're a wonderful person. You're wrong, wrongy, wrongo.
She says it's worth watching at least once to be certain. I like the remake of West Side Story for a lot of reasons, but there's also a lot of reasons I don't care for it as well. I can only watch it in short bits. I think my final answer outside of Dr. Horrible would actually have to be Enchanted. It knows what it is, and it doesn't play around. The music works well with the story and the feel of the movie, and it, like a lot of the others listed above, is presented in a way that cannot be done on stage, end quote. Dr. Horrible does seem to be a favorite.
Yeah, I do have to say with Enchanted, that's kind of cheating, because I think there are only like 3 songs in it.
That's fine. Listen, Jamie's a music teacher. I abide by her decisions.
Well,
except maybe for the genetic opera.
I gotta say.
See our entire episode on Repo, the Genetic Opera. Back at the website, we have The Snowman.
Oh, man.
Who is not a general fan. Quote, I am not a fan of musicals and feel especially more recent ones just don't work. However, I am a huge fan of the Astaire Rogers series of musicals, and pretty much all of them are close to perfect. The songs, the ridiculous storylines, and incredible dancing just tickle me every time. Many Disney animated musicals are pretty swell too, but the old-style Astaire Rogers are just in a different realm for me, end quote. Fair enough. Thanks, Snowy. Yep. His new nickname. And lastly, also from the website, and again, take a deep breath. Haley submitted, quote, I've been thinking over this poll question for days, and I'm not sure I have an answer. Perfect is such a high standard. I actually dearly love quite a lot of musicals, but even the ones that are special to me always have that one song that bores me or the bit that I don't think works. Mm-hmm. The Sound of Music is one of my childhood favorites, but honestly, I only like the first half. Once you hit Climb Every Mountain, the music drops off drastically. I remember we had the film on a 2 VHS set, and that was the cutoff point. Most of the time, I'd only watch the first tape. Singing in the Rain is also a film that I'll watch over and over, but the You Were Meant for Me and Broadway melody numbers really do bring the pacing of the story to a complete halt. Into the Woods is an amazing show, but the film adaptation was horribly disappointing. I really think Chicago is the best film adaptation of a musical that takes advantage of the medium to do something that stage musical can't. The framing of the musical numbers are as fantasy juxtaposed with the harsh realities of the prison the characters actually inhabit works well, and in my opinion, the music and pacing are actually consistent the whole way through, end quote. Well, thank you for the well-thought-out stuff, Haley. We just disagree on Chicago. I wasn't a fan, but that's fine. I also know for a fact that she is not a fan of one of mine, but we'll get to that because I want to ask you, Max, What about you? You asked the question, what are your favorite movie, remember, no stage shows, movie musicals where there's not a bad song in the bunch?
The big one for me has always been My Fair Lady.
Okay.
Because that one, to me, every song, it just knocks it out of the park, and that is very rare.
Yeah.
Guys and Dolls comes close. There's the movie, My Time of Day is, I don't know, that one's not a favorite. But, what about you?
Those two?
I don't find a lot of perfect musicals. There's always one, to me, most of them have at least one song that drags. A lot of, unfortunately, the romantic duets get kind of dull or sappy.
Yeah. I'm going to go Little Shop as an easy choice because I would sing I have sung every song in that thing, including the ones by Ellen Greene. And yes, I will sing them falsetto. No, nobody wants to hear them, but it's still fun. The songs are all fun. The one that's just kind of creepy is the Dentist song, but...
I love that. I love Be a Dentist. It's very easy to sing. It's one of the least vocally challenging.
Yeah.
But it's lyrically wonderful.
But there really is just not a down spot in that whole musical. It's a lot of fun, both on stage and the movie version with Rick Moranis, Ellen Greene, and Steve Martin.
Yep.
I like Moulin Rouge a lot. A lot of people, there was a big discussion on our Facebook page about do jukebox musical count. For those who don't know, Singing in the Rain is a jukebox musical. It did not exist. It was just a bunch of songs that whoever it was, Warner Brothers, happened to have in their corral of hits, and they decided to string them together. If you look at the songs from Singing in the Rain, they really do not go together, especially Gotta Dance.
Yeah,
whole sequence.
Or Be a Clown. I mean, which I love. That's my favorite part of the movie, but it's like, Where did this come from?
And somehow it works.
Yeah.
Singing in the Rain is a classic movie for good reasons. Those songs do not really go together.
Nope.
If you listen to them, they do not tell a story at all, but it still works. But one that I'm surprised was not on anybody's list that I love all the songs on, Rocky Horror.
Oh.
I have sung every song in Rocky Horror. There's some I like better than others, but I like all of the songs in Rocky Horror. Lastly, of course, the version of Hamlet from Gilligan's Island. But
well, that's not fair. That's combining Carmen. I mean, how can you get past that?
If we can do jukebox musicals, we can do that.
Sure.
I ask to be or not to be. That is the question that I ask of me. Anyway, so yeah, that's movie musicals.
Neither a borrower
nor a lender be.
Now it's going to be going through my head. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so bloody much.
As always, thanks tons for the answers. We always enjoy your input and your broadening
so
of
much.
our otherwise unbroad experiences.
Our very narrow little minds.
Yes, tiny little, yes, petite.
But
anyway, this week we are asking something in a new weird twist. We are asking a new question.
Ooh.
What subject matter do you think is most lacking in the movie theaters today? Or what area do you think Hollywood hasn't explored enough? I'm leaving a big open question for Max next week if he wants to take the bait, but that's up to him. So again, what do you think Hollywood has not explored enough? Could it be botany? Button collecting? I don't know. Let us know, and we'll quote
Talent?
you. That was painful.
Sorry.
Let us know, and we'll quote you on the show and add a nice big fat pile of bumpy bucks to your account with which you can have a big pile of bumpy bucks. And don't forget the cereal. But for now, back to the Beatles. The show. Trivia. Budget. It's so nice to be able to report these again. 1.5 million. Hey, you know what? I haven't told you what the film is. In case you didn't know, the film this week is in fact Help.
Help.
Help. So Help's budget. $1.5 million. Take a guess what it would take, Mac.
So you're telling me it was over $1 million?
Yes.
The take, I don't know. No clue.
I'm going to guess it's the take of the time as opposed to like since then, because it's been, 57 years?
Yeah, what was it, I don't know, 5-8 million?
12.
Oh, wow.
So kind of did okay. In case you were wondering, that swimmer who shows up twice to ask the way to the White Cliffs of Dover is not some forgotten Olympic swimmer. It was the Beatles' road manager, Mal Evans.
Yeah, I had forgotten that. I remember quoting that for years. We would just suddenly go, White Cliffs of Dover, and we'd all point in random directions. And I remember it being funnier. Anyway.
Oh, we'll get to that. One might wonder why those specific locations were chosen for backdrops to the intricate plot. Turns out the Alps and the Bahamas were chosen by the Beatles themselves for the simple reason that they had never been there before. It didn't hurt that the Bahamas are a British tax shelter, too.
That would work.
Now, Max, this one's going to surprise you. Seems a bit of the wheedly-deedly stuck its way into some of the lads, especially Paul and Ringo. When John shouts, quote, "It's a fiendish thingy, run, Ringo," end quote, those two didn't stop till they were well over the next hill. Being a new experience for the boys, it's also a reason that many of their lines don't sound quite right or are in fact wrong.
So you're saying they did a lot of the movie stoned?
Apparently they were all quoted as saying that, yes.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, if you watch the and I use the term loosely, performances, that fits very, very neatly.
Yeah. Not a favorite film of theirs, the Beatles reportedly, quote, "felt like extras in our own film," end quote. John Lennon was quoted as saying, quote, "I realize, looking back, how advanced it was. It was a precursor to the Batman pow wow on TV, that kind of stuff, but director Richard Lester never explained it to us. Partly, maybe because we hadn't spent a lot of time together between A Hard Day's Night and Help, and partly because we were smoking marijuana for breakfast during that period."
Marijuana, it's not just for breakfast anymore.
No, with vitamins.
Let's try it with your bumpy pucks.
Yeah, bumpy bucks now with pot. Yeah, that'll sell. Nobody could communicate with us. It was all glazed eyes and giggling all the time in our own world. It's like doing nothing most of the time, but still having to rise at 7 a.m., so we became bored, end quote. And there's nothing worse than a bored Beatle.
Yeah.
Right.
Because nothing is Beatle-proof.
Original title of the film, do you know this?
I do not.
And apparently this was the title up until literally, I think it was like a week before the film came out, at which point they named it Help and wrote a song to go with it. The original title of the film was 8 Arms to Hold You.
Oh, okay.
Because there's 4 Beatles and there's...
Yeah, and also the statue of Kali has 8 arms.
I think she has 6.
Oh, I thought it was 8. Okay.
But anyway, this is only the second Beatles movie ever. Can you believe it?
Hard to believe. What was the first?
Hard Day's Night.
Oh, it was the first. I couldn't remember which came out first.
Same director, too. Curling! It's a real thing, though American audiences thought it was just some made-up goofball game, a silly
event. It is! I don't care what they say in the Olympics. It's made up. I think Canada made this up just to mess with us.
It is actually true that Americans seeing this film thought it was made up and not just totally a joke. There's one point where Ringo gets tossed off a boat and exclaims, "I can't swim." He's not kidding. He can't.
Oh, dear.
They knew that ahead of time, but yeah, he can't swim. In a total reverse of how things are done today, the distribution company, United Artists, isn't mentioned at all, beginning or end of this film.
That's right.
Yeah. I wish Hollywood would take note of this.
Yeah, we don't really need to see 11 different production company logos at the beginning of the film, many of which look like little mini films themselves now.
Amazon, we're looking right at you.
Seriously, right in your face.
Director Richard Lester directed this and the previous Beatle film, A Hard Day's Night. The other films in his career include A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, The Three Musketeers, The Four Musketeers, Robin and Marion, Butch and Sundance, The Early Days, and Supermans 2 and 3.
He's very hit or miss.
Yeah. The two biggest influences on this and the Beatles' on-screen humor were, do you have any idea?
Marijuana?
I mean, to be fair, you're not wrong. But as you well know, the correct term is Weedly-deedly.
Weedly-deedly, excuse me.
The Marx Brothers, in particular the film Duck Soup, and an old British radio-turned-TV show, The Goon Show.
Oh.
Peter Sellers was also an influence and asked to join the film, but didn't fancy playing second fiddle to the Beatles.
Well,
which I can probably understand.
Kind of get. I mean, if you go to see a Beatles movie, you just want to see the Beatles.
Yeah. For reasons I cannot in any way comprehend, there was a novelization of this movie written.
What?
Speaking of which, unless Max has some more trivia, we can move on to the plot. Max, do you have any more trivia? Yes, there was novelization. No, I don't know why.
I just got one. Apparently, Paul McCartney used to drive the director, Richard Lester, crazy because he was wandering around all the time humming this melody for a song he called Scrambled Eggs that he was writing during the movie. And at the end, he did write it, except it has a very different title. Mike, you know what it is.
I remembered, but I think I forgot yesterday.
That's it. It was yesterday. Originally going to be called Scrambled Eggs.
Yeah, because,
Or it might have just been his sort of Blue Harvest working title. I don't know.
You know, I've actually been watching some documentaries on various songwriters and stuff like that, and a lot of times they get the tune and then they just throw words in just to fit the meter, just to see how it would sing.
Yeah.
And you get things like that, where it's like Norwegian Wood, I forget what that, I know it was originally Knowing She Would, which the producers over at Parlophone or whoever said, no. You can't sing about a sure thing on a date.
Yeah.
We can't have that. But yeah, sometimes they just throw stuff in until they figure out what the song's going to be about. So, But now, the plot.
The plot.
The 4 lads from Liverpool are at the center of a nefarious plot. Scheme. Pie. All of those are acceptable answers. Seems there's a cult of Kali-worshipping people from the Orient, and they are in search of their next human sacrifice. The one they had seems to have given away the magic ring which must be present, or the sacrifice will not be accepted. The young woman chosen seems to have given the bauble to one Ringo Starr. He simply wandered off with his 3 pals who are planning a nice little go-to-sleep at their connected homes somewhere in London. But soon, the cult is after them, stopping at nothing to get their hands on the ring and Ringo so that he might be sacrificed for something. In an attempt to get the ring removed, the Mop Tops stop at Scotland Yard, a jeweler's, and a mad scientist's. none can help, but the scientist and his sidekick, totally not Veruca Salt's dad, decide that somehow owning the ring will allow them to rule the world. Rule the world. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Thank you, Simon.
And so they and the cult chase the Beatles all over England, the Austrian Alps, and the Bahamas while the boys chime in every 20 minutes with another Beatles hit. Will Ringo have to sacrifice one of his favorite fingers, or worse? Will the cult finally get their hands on the ring and the wearer at the same time? Will the mad scientist get the ring and use it to do mad science-y things? You know, as well as we do, help. The lowdown. So Max,
Yeah.
I'm guessing you saw it on TV at some point. Do you remember how old you might have been when you first saw this movie?
I think I first saw it at the Harvard Square in a double feature with A Hard Day's Night.
Oh, so you actually saw it on the big screen.
I did.
Wow. So how old you might have been? Was that high school or early?
I think it was a little earlier. I think it was junior high.
Did you see it with Dave?
I don't remember. I actually think I might have seen it with my family.
Oh.
Because my parents were both huge Beatles fans.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. My mother used to play me the Beatles all the time.
And do you remember your reaction at that time? Well, we'll talk about your reaction now later.
Mostly I was confused. Well, this is, in a way, this movie is kind of ahead of its time. It's basically like a 90-minute music video.
In some ways, it very much is.
In some ways, yeah.
I think it's also it's safe to say that this movie is both seasons of the Monkees TV show. Yeah.
I kept thinking of, wow, I really see where the Monkees got all their stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I swear, I forget who it was who created the Monkees. I keep thinking it's Don Kirshner. I think it was Don Kirshner.
Was it?
I think so. And basically, this movie, plus the, giant piles of cash, I'm sure what inspired him to go, I can copy that.
Yep.
Because let's face it, that's exactly what this is. Every episode of the Monkees TV show has the sped up things. Quite honestly, the British humor, it's definitely not American humor. And they were obviously 4 young lads in a band living a wacky...
They even called them the Prefab Four.
Yeah. And the funny part was that the Monkees didn't stand for that very long and actually eventually proved that not only could they learn to play their instruments, they could actually write some pretty cool songs on their own without the...
And they could sing.
Yeah. But
anyway...
Yeah. So this is, and also, as he said, John Lennon said, this kind of helps form that Batman whap pow kind of sort of
kind
thing.
Of zany kind. I always associated that kind of humor more with British movies of the 60s. But, there's elements like the Avengers in it. Am I wrong, or a couple of times do we hear the James Bond theme?
We, as close as we can, because United Artists, of course, was also the company that owned and distributed the James Bond movies at the time. So there was definitely an attempt to make this seem Bondian in a way. Yeah. For me, not that you asked, but it doesn't matter. For me, this was one of those films that would show up on TV. And I think I may have even seen it younger than you did. And that's actually the last time I saw it. I think the last time I saw it, I was visiting my grandparents, and I couldn't have been not even in junior high yet. And I remember it was on TV. And I remember my sister and I thought it was hilarious. We used to laugh at it and, I get it. That's why they call him Ringo. No, it isn't. Because, of course, he was Ringo long before this. I actually don't. Do you know why they call him Ringo?
Yeah, he liked to wear rings.
Ah.
That was it. He liked big, flashy rings.
Oh. Well, that is a funny story, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. You're also a fan of the Beatles, aren't you, Max?
I am. I very much am. I grew up with them. I still love them, even though I discovered them sort of later than a lot of people my age did. But because I would listen to them, and that was like, oh, that's mom and dad's music.
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up listening to them, and I still really like them. My mother used one of the songs to explain to me what the difference was in, how was it put, style, musical style. She would play these 2 versions of Yesterday.
Oh, right.
One of them, of course, Paul McCartney, and the other one is Ray Charles.
Right.
And it's the same song, but it is not the same song.
Yeah, no, it's totally true.
The contrast is amazing. They're both wonderful versions, but they're so different. It's really cool. But Yeah. I gotta say, a lot of this movie has not aged well.
Gee, really? Let's talk about one of those things real quick. The very opening of the film. The first note was, at least the movie's not disrespectful or racist. Please note the heavy sarcasm there.
Wow. I mean, never mind. Okay, first of all, it's a Kali cult.
Sure.
Headed by notable not Indian Leo McKern.
Right. Who's
probably best known as Rumpole of the Bailey.
Yeah, or a small part in Lady Hawk. But,
yeah, and a small part in King Lear with Laurence Olivier.
Yeah.
I mean, Leo McKern's been around a lot. He's very distinctive. You'd know him if you saw him. By the way, you know why he has that slightly odd expression all the time? He lost his eye when he was 15.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He has a glass eye.
Him and Peter Falk. Huh.
Yep.
Oh.
And just to make it clear, he is not Indian. Okay, he is not from India. He is very, very English. And as are most of the people pretending to be Indian, there are a few.
Yeah.
Karl Bupta is in there and a couple of others. And also, I can't help noticing they don't know how to pronounce Kali.
No.
I keep saying Kylie.
I wasn't sure if they were trying to do that so that they weren't saying the actual name or...
But that was a Kali statue.
I know. It's yeah, and of course they're talking about human sacrifice because, you know. And now here's the thing. There may very well be historical precedent for this 1,000 years ago. But if the only exposure you're going to have to the Indian subcontinent is this, it's not exactly...
The Tucci cult was real, and they did kill people.
Sure.
I don't think they did the whole, Kalima thing. They would strangle people, and they would rob them.
Right.
That was hundreds of years ago.
Well, that's okay, because later on, if you were worried that they were only going to insult one culture of people called Indians, then you're wrong, because there will be later some ugh and how stuff from the Beatles themselves. So at least, and you thought Apu was insulting. So yeah. So let's get the blatant continual racism out of the way, because after that you can enjoy the movie. Let's just glance over, and I do mean glancing blow over the acting, such as it is, because it's the
Leo
Beatles.
McKern is trying so hard.
Yeah.
He really is. He's given it his all. But John, Paul, George, and Ringo, brilliant musicians, all of them.
Yep.
Great musicians.
Yep.
As actors, great musicians.
High as kites.
They're not actors. They never, and to be fair, they never pretended they were.
No.
They never thought they were actors. They never told people they were actors.
No.
And they're not. They can't act.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. They take four of the most dynamic, significant musical presences of the 1960s, and they make them dull.
Well, it's funny because one of my notes was the Beatles seem really tired.
Clearly we know now because they were stoned, but they all seem exhausted. They've got no energy. They're barely trying.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue is kind of funny.
When you can understand it.
When you can hear and understand it, yes.
I decided not to cheat and turn on the subtitles, but I was tempted because it ain't easy. It wasn't easy. I was wondering, I was going to look into this until I got to the trivia and found out about the Weedly Deedly. I was going to look in because, this is right before the Beatles stopped playing live because they just couldn't take it anymore. And they were like, nobody can hear us. And their schedule was nuts. I don't know anybody who does this. They were doing world tours and putting out 2 albums a year.
Unbelievable.
And I can totally understand. I think it's in 1966. They just said, we've had enough. We're done. We are not playing live ever again. And as far as I know, the only time they broke that is when they played on top of the roof. And that's it. And even then, it's like there's no crowd. I think it's mostly because people couldn't believe, I can't be the Beatles. They haven't played in 5 years. And it's not them. But so I thought they were tired. Apparently they were tired of not having enough Weedly Deedly. I love how they were like, we were experimenting. We'd never had it before. Maybe they hadn't. But they sure seemed to like to experiment. I'll say that. Apparently you could see their eyes were kind of red. I didn't notice that.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
they didn't do enough that much close-up work.
No. I would also say that, and this will lead into other things, this is not the sort of thing I think you could get away with today. I don't think you could take a band or a top singer and just make a movie where they got to act zany for an hour and a half and it be anything.
You mean like Rock and Roll High School?
Yes, exactly. I'm not even sure that the Ramones were awake for that movie.
I don't think they knew they were in a movie, quite honestly.
Probably not. Too much riboflavin. Yeah. And actually, you know what the hell? I'll bring this question up now. What is the point of this film?
The point of this film is to have half a dozen Beatles songs for you to listen to.
Okay.
And watch them while they're playing. That's it. You're there to see the Beatles. You're there to hear the music and to watch them play it because it was very hard to get to see the shows.
Well, we know for a fact that they're not playing it because there's many scenes of them not playing it.
Yeah, and some of the scenes look like they're supposed to be concert footage, or not concert footage, but looks like they're supposed to be playing. But there are a number that look like early music videos in that the song is playing and they're romping on the beach or skiing or riding whatever those scooter things they were riding.
It's the only way you'll get me on skis. Apparently,
so there's some of that.
Apparently, they did not know how to ski, had never skied. And the director, Richard, there said, we'll go practice. And then, of course, threw them at a mountain and just filmed it. Or at least part of it. So, yeah. Also, this is sort of looping back to the racism part. There's a term in this film that thankfully we have pretty much eradicated, except maybe when talking about rugs, and that is Oriental.
Yeah.
Because Oriental doesn't mean anything.
No.
It's just basically
they approach the nearest Oriental.
Yeah, and it's like, if you go far enough east in Europe, you get to the Orient. It's over there. And it just encompasses anything. I always thought Oriental had more to do with China, but in this case,
nope.
They don't skip that whole big subcontinent, India, and they just decided it includes that too, so whatever. And it's also, I will say one of the things that is cool, though, is seeing the Beatles so painfully young. I'm figuring they're in their mid-20s.
If that, yeah.
Fresh-faced. I think the only one who shaves is Paul. And, he's the only one who seems to have any kind of shadow. The rest of them are just like, he's so pink-cheeked. And
it's
nice.
It's odd. They also, Ringo is the most distinctive looking of them. It's kind
what
of
do you
hard
mean, Max?
It's hard to tell the other three apart.
Are you saying there's a certain feature of Ringo's that stands out?
Well, yeah, those big sad eyes and the heavy brows, and yes, the nose. He has, as he says, a big neb.
Yeah, I have to say too that his haircut is not exactly flattering.
No, that mop top it worked okay for John, and I guess for Paul. It doesn't work. It doesn't do Ringo any favors.
You know who it worked for? Dorothy Hamill. That's who it worked for. It did not work for the Beatles. Well, yeah. His is just especially not flattering.
It's funny also just to see John Lennon without his glasses. That's because it was such a symbol of his in later years, which I assume he got because his eyes got worse.
Well, it's funny, too, because that was a piece of trivia I left out. Those little granny glasses, everyone thought their first appearance was, I think is on the cover of Rolling Stone in his helmet and everything. Actually, the first appearance of the glasses is this film. He does wear them briefly once.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So, first appearance of the glasses. We'll get the origin story later, and then they, of course, become a superhero. And anyway. Did you catch the Mr. Whippy truck?
Yes.
Yippee! It's Mr. Whippy. Turn out that was not made up for the movie. That's actually a brand of
that's
ice cream.
A real ice cream truck. Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Whippy. Some of it, I find it kind of interesting. Like I say, this is sort of proto music video in some ways, and in some ways they really don't know what they're doing. The whole there's a sequence where they do "Hey, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away," great song. Mm-hmm. They're just singing it in their apartment. And the woman who has come to help them, Ame, who has betrayed the Thuji cult for no apparent reason.
Thuggy.
I've heard Thuji.
That's where we get the word thug.
Yeah, but that's because of mispronunciation.
Never heard it pronounced anything but thuggy, but that's okay.
During the whole song, she's just sitting on the couch next to Paul, and she's got this So should I just sit here? Look. And she glances over at them occasionally. It's like, am I supposed to be enjoying this? Should I be staring adoringly at Paul?
Well, yeah, he's the cute one.
They try to sort of emphasize that, and then they just sort of forget every so often. But yes, Paul, they all had their roles, just like a lot of the boy bands of the 2000s did. What was it? Paul was the cute one. George was the shy one.
No,
Ringo
George was the quiet one.
Was he the quiet? Yeah. Well, quiet or shy. John was the smart one. Ringo was the funny one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Smart one.
Oh, yeah, John was the smart one. He was supposed to be the brains. It's probably not wrong. John Lennon was very smart.
I think all of them kind of were, at least eventually.
Yeah.
There's so much written and so much done about the Beatles that that's the one thing. That's my only major problem with the Beatles is that they are so overplayed, and it's really hard to get a quiet moment where you can just appreciate them without the baggage. And there's a lot of baggage.
There is a lot.
Yeah, and we'll be actually scrutinizing some of that baggage in this series, so you don't have to. There's one word that I would say that exemplifies the overall feeling of this film. Can you guess what that word might be?
Beatle-rific?
No.
Okay, then no.
Zany.
Yes, they are very, very trying to be zany.
Yes, and if this was a different band, you might even use the word monkey shine, but of course you wouldn't because they're Beatles and they don't do that. I don't think that this is a film for me that I get the same way as I did when I was a kid. I will say that. And it's weird because I remember as a kid just laughing my ass off and thinking it was hilarious. Did you laugh your ass off at any point?
During this version?
Yes.
There were a couple of bits I thought are kind of cute. I like the fact that when Ringo is cornered by a tiger, the police officer immediately explains what the tiger is doing. I have in my notes, thank you, Officer Exposition. And the way to calm the tiger down is to get the entire pub to start singing Beethoven's Ode to Joy from the Ninth Symphony. And the fact that the entire pub knows the song, I thought was cute. And then they have an entire soccer stadium singing along.
Oh, I'm sorry, why do you think that's funny?
I just thought it was cute.
But it's
because
true.
It's so out of place.
But it's true.
That singing the Ode to Joy will make a tiger relax.
You didn't know that? It has to actually do with the different tones and the way they relate to each other. That actually causes...
I think you're lying, Grandpa.
No, seriously. Don't go to tiger.com because actually I have no idea what's there.
So remember,
dirty.
Folks, what you should do is climb into the tiger pit at the zoo and sing the Ode to Joy. Yeah.
You should sing it
please do not climb into the tiger pit.
Yes. Max Mike Movies will not, in fact, be responsible for anybody climbing into tiger pits.
That and... Leo McKern tries to be... He's kind of funny a couple of times.
Yeah.
I do kind of like, take this hastily scribbled note hastily.
Yeah. We still don't have any idea exactly what the point of the cult is. We don't know.
No, we have no idea.
We just know you're supposed to do it. And what's supposed to happen is every day somebody's chosen somehow. They're wearing this nifty ring. They get painted red.
Which looks like a ring pop. I'm sorry.
Or grandma's doorknob.
Yeah.
And then you get painted red and sacrificed on the table of sacrificing, which at the end of the film, they have flown all the way from India.
Yeah, apparently this entire temple is portable.
Yeah. Well, they put the statue out in the water, so who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm giving something away, but, magically the ring finally comes off when Ringo shows a bit of courage, I guess. And at first, Ame, is that her name? Ami?
Yeah.
Ame. Picks up the ring and then quickly realizes what a horrible mistake she's made and gives it to Clang. His name is Clang.
Ah, yes. Very classic Hindu name.
Yeah.
Clang.
Who then realizes, of course, that, having the ring and being sacrificed isn't such a big honor, and hilarity ensues on the beach in the Bahamas.
I also have to say, one of the messages of this film that I took away, yes, absolutely, that the Bahamian police are much more effective than the London police.
Yes.
Because the London police in this movie are absolutely useless, but the police in the Bahamas with their cute little white helmets capture most of the thugs.
Yeah.
They get away, but they capture them.
Yeah, there's that cute little bit at the airport where they're having the inspector from Scotland Yard meet all of the policemen from the local Bahamian, I don't know, police force. And when he meets one and moves to the next, the one he had just talked to scoots around back, so it looks like they have this giant force when in fact there's 3 guys.
Yeah.
That's cute. Also, you may have caught, speaking of Scotland Yard, there's actually a big dig at them that John makes.
Oh, yeah, about the
great train robbery.
Yes, he's saying, yes, we always get our man. Yeah, how's it going on the great train robbery, eh?
Yeah. See, I didn't know. I thought they were talking about the one like back from, the turn of the century where they had a silent film made out of it, blah, blah, blah. But no, apparently this was something only like 2 years before the film was released. And it was like the British mail train, and the people who robbed it, they actually didn't know this. There was over £2 million worth of cash on the train.
And they weren't ready for it. They couldn't carry it. So they started
throwing it out the train.
Yep.
And they wouldn't be caught till 1968. So
yeah, and there's this there are some kind of, as you say, zany moments at the very end. You see that the film is dedicated to Elias Howe, the inventor of the sewing machine.
Right.
For no reason. And the closing credits are done from the music of the overture of The Barber of Seville.
Yeah, which of course
sure.
Do you have flashbacks whenever you hear that song?
Every time to Bugs Bunny. Every time. That was my introduction to The Barber of Seville.
Yep. That's the only reason I know it is because the Bunny of Seville, but whatever.
Yep.
Did the film, seeing it again, I don't know when the last time you saw it was, but I'm guessing not recently. Did the film make you feel nostalgic at all?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It reminded me that, when I was when in simpler times and my brain was simpler, I'm sure I enjoyed it a lot more. And also just the style of the way it's shot and the way it presents the Beatles, especially when they're just doing the songs, when they're standing there singing and playing their instruments.
Well,
the way they do it, the way they play, you can't do that anymore. Because they just stand there and play their music.
Yeah.
They don't dance. They don't gyrate. There's no special effects. There's no explosions or freaky lights. It's just, hi, here we are. Here's the song.
Yeah. Well, you know why they're doing that, Max?
No.
They're trying to cover for the fact that they have no skill in pyrotechnics and no skill in leaping about on wires. See, they're just compensating, Max. I'm sorry that you fell for that.
I think they took me in. I just thought they were great musicians. That's all.
Yeah.
Even though, skills. Yes, I know technically Ringo was a mediocre drummer. However, he was a really good keyboard player. He had a great voice, and he was a decent songwriter.
From what I understand, I have read arguments back and forth on this that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, he's a very uninteresting drummer. He was adequate is the word that I heard most. And I hear a lot of people say for the Beatles, he was about the perfect drummer because he wasn't overpowering. He's exactly what they needed. He did the job. He got it done. And apparently of all the Beatles, he was the easiest to get along with. Like
that's what I've also heard. He had the least of an ego problem.
He was just like, yeah, whatever, man, we'll just do it. And today he's all like, peace, man. He's the only one who seems to have retained any of that 60s hippie stuff. It's like apparently he really went for it and believed it. And he's still, apparently he's just like, yeah, whatever, wheedly-deedly, whatever.
Well, that's more Paul McCartney, but yeah.
I can't, yeah. Oh, that's right. Ringo is Wacko Warner. That's right.
That's right.
Well, thank God we had Ringo Starr. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had Wacko Warner.
He still influences our culture today. Some of the way they handle the comedy is very odd, and it's very British. They stretch things out a lot. There is this odd sequence. It doesn't matter why. The army is protecting the Beatles, and they're hiding in a tank, and the cult blows up the tank. And there is this really lengthy segment of them celebrating that they've blown up the tank. And this is so English.
Yeah.
You see it in Benny Hill. You see it in the Two Ronnies and the Goon Show. They stretch these things out. And honestly, for at least an American audience, it goes way too long. It doesn't need to be that long.
I found that going on too long is kind of a British tradition.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to their science fiction films. They tend to be very drawn out, Zardoz.
Yeah.
There's
Doctor Who.
Space
The old
1999.
ones, anyway, yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing, often, sadly, there's nothing that more boring than a British science fiction film because they're very serious and they're very ponderous and they just take forever.
They try for...
I was going to say the clips in this are actually generally pretty quick. Yeah. And I'm going to say that your mentioning of Benny Hill probably has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And the sped up, they speed things up occasionally and stuff. But
they do some of that. They also, some of the shticks, they're interesting ideas, but they don't go anywhere. Some of it looks like it's supposed to be cute. Like, this is a 96-minute movie. They have an intermission. This thing appears, part 1, part 2, intermission, all of which takes place in like 8 seconds. And suddenly you're back in the movie. And for some reason, don't ask why, Paul gets shrunk down to like an inch tall, and they have a thing, The Exciting Adventure of Paul on the Floor.
Right.
Which involves him naked, hiding in an ashtray.
He was wearing flesh-colored undies, so thankfully we didn't see little Paul, as you like to put it.
Paul, yeah. Yeah. It's a very odd sequence. It's like, okay, this could be funny, and then they do nothing with it. It goes nowhere.
No, he gets splashed with orange juice or something.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
And just some of there's a shtick. They're in Buckingham Palace. That was Buckingham Palace, by the way.
Huh.
And that's it. They just happened to be, it's like, oh, look at this, we're in Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
All right. You're not going to do anything else with that. Okay.
Maybe the Queen wouldn't let them. I think
maybe.
The most amazing thing is the Queen that was Queen then is still the Queen now. Somehow she's still going, and, good for her.
Queen Betty, still on the throne. God save her.
Betty Windsor, yeah. Now, do you think, if you were somebody who somehow, and I don't even know if this is humanly possible, had never heard of the Beatles, that this film would give you a good introduction to them?
I don't. I really don't think so.
What do you think it would tell you about the Beatles if you'd never heard of them?
It would confuse me a great deal because I'd be sitting there going, wow, why is this movie not just them singing? Why are they trying to throw all this other stuff in? No, I don't think it would be much of an introduction.
So like you said, you think it's for fans who couldn't get enough of the Beatles?
I think it was for fans who said, hey, we want to see the Beatles and we want to see them do wacky stuff.
Yes.
We want to see them do more than they normally do.
I think you meant zany.
Zany stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what we've got.
We could get to the end because we don't have little questions for this series.
Not yet, no.
I couldn't think of any. Obviously, you couldn't. If we think of more questions, or if you think of questions, you can email us the usual way, and we'll tell you that in a minute. But I guess we'll get to the wrap-up.
Yeah.
The roundup. So, Max.
Yeah.
We know you loved this as a child and trusted as a mother, but have you seen it recently before watching it for this show?
I haven't seen it in at least 20, 30 years.
Yeah. And so what do you think?
I don't think it holds up.
No?
I'm sorry. I think it's fascinating as a historical artifact. I think it's fun to see them as basically children. And I do still like... This is the exact opposite of the way I was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I liked the zany, silly things, and I was like, oh, another song. Gosh, I got to sit through that. Now it's like, more of the zany antics. When can we have another song?
Could the Beatles get out of the way so I can watch the story? Christ.
Yeah, pretty much. I want to see the funny guys try to strangle people some more and put people in soup pots.
Yeah.
So I don't. There are parts I can see would be cute, but it really, a lot of the humor is very inappropriate now, and I don't think it's held up well at all. How about you?
I probably haven't seen it in longer period of time. Like, again, I'm thinking the 70s is the last time I saw this, and it was on TV. Like Yellow Submarine would show up like once a year, and you'd watch it as a kid and you'd love it. And in a way, I think it speaks more about us, or at least me, as a viewing audience. Is there a singular for audience? Audion?
Audience member?
I'll go with audion. I just made that up.
No, one person can be an audience.
Oh, I like audion. Anyway, I've changed so much that I don't think I can appreciate this film. Now, I don't remember the racist parts. I did not remember them at all. And it's the first thing the film opens up with, "We're from India." Oh, dear gods. Okay.
No, you're not.
The only thing I can say is that Leo McKern, if anything, and I'm not even sure they did this, if anything, is slightly tan. They didn't slather on shoe polish. I'll give them that. That's about all I'll give them.
Yeah.
And it's just the obliviousness with which the Indian people are treated in this film is so indicative of the times. And you're right, it's a very good record. It's like, hey, this is how Britain treated other cultures.
Very, very British.
Yeah, at the time. The Beatles, too, as I said, I don't think you could do this today because it almost feels like an ego product, and or a project that's just, look how wonderful we are. And, of course, some of the stuff we've learned about the Beatles was that wasn't really their choice. They were like, you have to do this because you signed, you didn't sign with Colonel Parker, but you came close.
Yeah.
And you're required to do these things. And they obviously coped the best way they could. They got high. Quite honestly, I'd probably have done the same thing. But let's face it, there's nothing less funny than being the one straight guy in a room watching a bunch of other people high off their ass. It's generally just... not particularly funny. I actually wish I had known that ahead of time. I actually might have found it more funny. Notes, oh my God, look how high they are. Or had known and I might have indulged myself. I don't know. The music is nice. I got to give it that. But we've heard it. It's not like there were special versions of the songs done for the movie. It's just...
I also have to say, it is not my favorite musical period of the Beatles. It's the early stuff. It's the "I Want to Hold Your Hand," "You'll Lose That Girl." We haven't gotten to the more interesting yet. We haven't gotten to "Yesterday" and "In My Life" and "Sergeant Pepper" and the more experimental, out there, daring things they did. Yeah,
they're still doing the "Oh Nameless Woman, I'm So in Love with You" songs.
Yeah.
Same here. And I think the sad thing is that the only reason they would agree to making this film is that they hadn't got to that interesting part. The part where they would just basically go, no, we're not doing that. No. So, whatever. So the music's nice. My recommendation is buy a nice Beatles album. Listen to that. I'm sure there was a Help album that had all the songs in here. You've heard them all. There's nothing new here. It is nice seeing. It was a really nice print. I don't know where you watched it, but it was obvious that they had done some restoration to it, and the print itself looked gorgeous.
Very clean. It's a very clean old man.
Yeah, and the lads, of course, we're missing half of them. The ones that are left have aged, as everyone does, because I think they're like 80 now. They're old. And
they're about 900 years old, yes, but they're aging pretty well.
Not their best moment. I'm sure it sold a bunch of records, and really that's all that counts, isn't it? But yeah. Let's go over our poll question so that people might know what it is and how they can answer it, shall we?
Why don't we?
We're asking, what subject matter do you think is most lacking in the movie theaters today? Or what area do you think Hollywood hasn't explored enough? Let us know, and you can do so in the following manners, or ways, or...
methods.
Yes. All right, so first you can email us directly at our email address, which is us@maxmikemovies.com, which suggests a website. Hey, we have a website. It's only been 188 episodes. I'm sure you've never found it by now. But in case you don't know, it is, in fact, maxmikemovies.com, where you can leave comments. And hey, if you have comments about other series you'd like to see us do, or even single films, we might even be able to build a series on a single film. You never know. Recently, we did have one from The Snowman, so thank you, Snowman. But yeah, leave comments about that show or potential other shows, or if you want to correct us in a couple of things, like for the fact that apparently William Daniels is, in fact, not dead. So we still have a possibility of him doing a Knight Rider reunion film.
Oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please.
94.
Wow. Well, but unfortunately, David Hasselhoff is dead.
Is he?
Well, professionally.
You're dissing the Hoff.
I am hassling the Hoff, yes.
Speaking of dissing the Hoff, you can also find us on social media.
What does that have to do with dissing the Hoff?
That's where you would do it. You would diss the Hoff on social media. See, I totally connected that.
You
can find us on Twitter. Hey, you could be number 7. You can find us on Twitter and on Facebook as Max Mike Movies. And last but not least, if you have a favorite podcast app, we're probably there. But remember, nobody wants you to use Spotify, except them. But next week, we're going to continue with the Fab Four. And how are we going to continue with the Fab Four, Max? Do let us know.
We are going to watch one of the earliest documentaries about the lads from Liverpool.
Good old Frida.
Oh, now, I should say we are going to try to watch it because this movie, narrated by the great Malcolm McDowell.
Good old Frida. Ooh.
Yes, that's right. My little droogies.
The Beatles are a fire in which we all burn.
So much punching is coming your way. Yes, however, this movie is remarkably hard to watch. Not like because it's so bad, but it's hard to find.
Good old Frida.
It's not on any of the streaming services. It's not around. I believe Mike managed to find a copy on the Internet Archive.
Good old Frida.
We're going to try. We're going to see how this works. If not, next week's show is going to be very short.
Not entirely unlike this one. So, If you want the whole story, the complete story.
Yes.
Good old Frida.
The complete story of the Beatles.
Join us next week, won't you? Thank you.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.
It's okay, Max. I don't think anyone will notice that we had to change the movie at the last second.